So were you giving us
I was trying to give the S, but I
the S
think I did
of,
it too early.
wait, an S?
S?
Because different.
Ed. Yeah, mine has ET instead of ED.
Oh.
So instead of Ed, I have Et.
Oh,
There were 100 different versions
Fair
of
enough.
this. I like this
Um,
one.
but yeah, so you were looking at the comma before that, right?
Yeah.
That's what
I
you're
did
giving
too
us.
early.
Great. So since we're in 2, and frequently in the Renaissance we're in 2, we want to think about how to give things like an offbeat cutoff. It's generally not a good idea to give a left hand because it's going to be on an offbeat and it looks a little awkward. Sometimes you have to. In this case, because there's no consonant there, I wouldn't worry too much about it. You just want to give a lift, which is back to that flick gesture that we just used a moment ago. 1 and 2 and 1, 2, right? So we're just minimizing the 1 and giving a larger release, and that's what's going to cue the cutoff there. So 1 and 2 and 1, 2. Yep. Bum, 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 bum. Because essentially what you're giving is a breath prep for beat 2,
Right.
and we got to breathe, so we're going to have to cut off to do that,
Okay.
right? Let's try it again. By the way, you'll notice what note is getting the beat. Welcome to the Renaissance. They used a lot of open note heads. Any guesses why?
Because news?
Save zinc.
Hmm?
Save zinc.
That's exactly what it was. A lot of these, especially before the Renaissance, would have been copied by hand. So if you're using ink and you fill in the ink, you may create a hole, which means you have to start all over again. So by using open note heads, they were less likely to mess up. And that tradition continues through the Renaissance and starts changing as printing comes into being a thing. So that's why you see a lot of open hole notes all over the place. Good. I think by the way, the legato gesture is really nice. I can tell you've been working on that. It looks really good in this. So now we want to take that and see if we can shape things just a little bit more so that it's not always the same 2 pattern. Sometimes a note gets more or less. There you go. And it's just a question of which one gets the more and which one gets the less. And that may shift. So if we go to the end, do you feel like this should get slower at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can show us that too using your gesture. Remember, as soon as you change directions, our brain heads to the next beat. So you can stretch as long as you keep going in the same direction, we will stay there. So, contento. Yeah. So this time I want you to do that. Make it maybe 4 times longer than is written, just to have that experience. So just together, ready? Re contento. Yeah, and the last note, we don't need a beat too. So the same
Right.
idea. And again, as long as you're moving in the same direction, we'll hold the note. And then as soon as you change direction, we'll stop it.
Okay.
Okay? So let's start right where the sopranos have the long note. 4
Okay.
bars from the end.
Right before tempo or right on the
This is
tempo?
right where do for the sopranos is.
Thank you.
Oh, so you got like.
So you want the tento, like the 10 part, right?
Oh, I was just starting right on do. Last syllable of the soprano line.
Okay.
So you should have 4 bars from there to the end, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I think you're starting 2 bars later. So the alto line should be. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. It just,
You
it
just
feels
want
like.
me to stretch it later in it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see
didn't know
what
where
you're
you
doing.
wanted.
Yeah, I feel like you may be slowing down a little too soon.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll stay in tempo usually up until about the last word or 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Let's try that
Okay.
again. Realize that most younger conductors tend to rush through things.
Yeah, don't.
So I want you to challenge yourself to take way too much time on both of the last 2 syllables. Make us think, well, that was too long. All right, do it again. Not too much time. It was about right.
Okay.
Now make us wait too much time.
Okay.
What that means is when
Yes.
you get to beat 2 has to move very slowly away from the beat. Yeah. And that's how you can stretch this for an eternity.
Okay.
Okay? One more time.
One more
It's
time.
okay. You were 1 bar too
Yep,
soon.
I was.
One more time. Yeah, right? See, you've got
That's
so much control over the ensemble as long as you're willing to wait for it to happen. And that's the important lesson for everyone. Don't be afraid to just wait. And there are spaces where you may give a cutoff, and the same thing is true. Give the cutoff and just wait. And then you can go on.
That's
Good
fun.
work. Thanks, Michaela.